welcome to the midweek edition of Business Morning on Channels Television. Good morning, I'm Ini John Mekwa. Well, let's get the program started with updates from the world of business, beginning from the global oil space. Oil prices slipped today after the Chinese government stepped up efforts to tame record-high coal prices and ensure coal mines operate at full capacity as Beijing moves to ease a power shortage. Chinese coal prices and other commodity prices slumped in early trade, which in turn pulled oil prices down from an uptick earlier in the day. Brent crude futures dropped 43 cents to $84.65 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures for November, which expires later on today, fell 37 cents to $82.59 a barrel. The more active WTI contract for December was down 45 cents to $81.99 a barrel. Oil market in general remains supported on the back of a global coal and gas crunch, which has driven a switch to diesel and fuel oil for power generation. However, U.S. gasoline and distillate inventories, which include diesel, heating oil, and jet fuel, fell much more than analysts had expected, pointing to strong demand. And in Nigeria, the federal government has announced the scrapping of the Department of Petroleum, the Petroleum Products Pricing Regulatory Agency, and the Petroleum Equalization Fund. This was made known by the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timi Silva, during the inauguration of the boards of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority and the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission in Abuja. The minister also mentioned that the NPRA and the NURC had taken over the functions of the three agencies. The chief executive had been relieved of their various appointments.
We are all aware that the Petroleum Industry Act has been passed. And that act has created two successor agencies to the DPR, the Petroleum Equalization Fund, and to the PPPRA. Therefore, since the law had been passed, the successor agencies are already in place. The President, in his wisdom, has appointed the chief executives and the chairman of the boards. And on Friday, their letters of appointment have been issued. It is my place to ensure that they start work immediately. Right now, since the DPR had become defunct, it was becoming a problem how to continue next. But we're happy that the chief executives are now in place for the commission and the authority, and therefore that vacuum no longer exists.
Well, the budget for 2021, including supplementary budget, is 14.6 trillion naira, out of which total capital expenditure, including for MDAs, is 4.98 trillion naira for the whole year. Drawing from this, by August, capital expenditure should have hit 3.3 trillion naira, but according to the breakdown which the finance minister gave last week, as at August ending, capital expenditure stood at 1.75 trillion naira, an amount which is derived from the country's debt. Actual borrowing, as at that time, which is the end of August, was 4.61 trillion naira. Now, can the infrastructure backed by this loan, can it pay back the debts and the loans from which, or for which the loans were taken? Well, we'll have that conversation with Professor Ken Ife. He is a development economist joining us from our Abuja studio. Good to speak with you, Prof. Good morning.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Good to have you too. Well, it is imperative that a government develops infrastructure, and this justifies the country's borrowing. But can we put our debts up until this time, or let's say August ending, and the capital expenditure, can we put it side by side and see if they are at par?
Well, the issues are this. Should we borrow? The question is yes. Why? Because if you needed to invest, which is the case, you have to resort to your savings. As a country, we don't have it. So you have no option than to borrow. Of course, you have two options in the borrowing, domestic borrowing or foreign. In our case, we are splitting it 50-50, which is optimal. But there is a law that guides borrowing, which is the FRA, the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007, which says that you borrow for capital expenditure of human resource development, you borrow on concessionary terms for long term, and then you also need to justify what they call, you have to justify that. And then government tries to do that, and the DMO helps it to pass it, and then we expect something to come from Fiscal Responsibility Commission. Now, the thing is this, the stock of infrastructure in Nigeria is only 35%. In South Africa, it's about 80%. In many countries, it's over 100%. We are underspending on infrastructure. And we have to build infrastructure. The reason, again, is that if you look at the two visions of Nigeria, long-term visions of Nigeria, 2030, our GDP is expected to grow to 1.64 trillion in 2050, 6.4 trillion. It's inconceivable you will go anywhere near those figures if it's not matched by growth in infrastructure. Infrastructure connects to employment generation. It connects to building a sustainable economy. There are questions on debt sustainability without a doubt, but it is necessary to borrow, and you have to borrow for the right reason. The law is very clear, the wrong reasons for borrowing, and then it's very, very severe on what the penalties that will go to civil servants and financial institutions if they lend money for different purpose other than what the law says.
Okay, so the borrowing, according to the finance ministers, at the end of August stood at 4.61 trillion naira. Meanwhile, capital expenditure was at 1.75 trillion naira. And each time we hear of, borrowing a loan, it is linked to infrastructure. So is there a way to explain the difference between this 4.61 and 1.75?
No, when you look at the infrastructure, the overall because infrastructure spending, capital expenditure spending is spread into so many areas. You have a lot of it on infrastructure, which is really wide, where the law says spend the money on. Then you have in other non-borrowed money, which is from government's own budget, capital expenditures in normal capital expenditure. And then you have some other capital expenditure in statutory transfers and some other areas. So when you get all of them together, we're actually posting 33% of our budget on capital expenditure, which is among the highest in this administration. So it's good news. Are we going to be able to spend all that is another story. Because the spend is dependent on the money coming in, as well as, of course, the loan will come in. But there are other revenues that they are going to depend on. The president said that last year we expect to do 100% spend on the budgeted capital expenditure. The year before, we did well because remember that the Senate allowed the second year to run concurrently for over another 3 months. So that, we did our best there. So what other issues are we going to look at in relation to that? The fact of the matter is that capital expenditure is the key to build confidence. People don't want to invest in your economy if they don't see that you are building infrastructure, if they don't see that you are rolling out laws that are enabling the environment. So it's very key.
So there's also the issue of, can these infrastructures pay, for the loan that is being taken? For instance, we see the construction of a railway to link Kano and Kaduna will cost about 1.2 billion naira. We also see the one for Second Niger Bridge, about 336, beg your pardon, billion naira. Can they pay for this money?
There are two types of infrastructure. There are the longer-term infrastructure that actually require a lot of money, but spread over a longer period of time. Rail is the key example on that. When you build rail, it's very expensive. You can't expect to recover the cost of the rail bill will be over $15 billion, you know, when you add all of them. But the thing is, it's not, you don't, the commutation should not be based on passenger traffic. The real return is expected from cargo, because rail is the cheapest and most effective way of transporting heavy goods across long distances all over the world. So you need to give it a little more time for such infrastructure projects that are going to connect to rail to come on stream. For example, the sea line, the seaports. We have plans for so many deep sea ports: Lekki deep sea port, One deep sea port. They have Bakassi, you have the one in Cross River State, Ibaka deep sea port. Bayelsa is looking for one. Badag is looking for one. Bonny is. So they are all huge. When you define a deep sea port, how to compare it is that the big ship like Panamax can enter the deep sea port, which is over 13 meters in length, in depth. Compared to Lagos, what you see coming to Lagos and Tinkan and all of that are just small ships that carry 4,000 containers. A big deep sea port with Panamax will carry 16,000, 17,000 containers. So that if you enter Lekki, you can forget Lagos because it will be dead jam. But so you need rail to move them out. And then you now have to have inland container depots spread across the country inland, where you'll be whisking these goods away, and the customs can go there and deal with the clearing. But that's very important for the rail. So you have to wait for these to connect up to the rail lines, to the seaports, for that profitability to come. And then, of course, we are not exporting that much. If we are doing so, you have backhaul capacity. And that backhaul capacity makes a huge difference, because they charge you 50 to 100% more for importing container loads, simply because they are going back empty. The same thing with plane. When the plane comes in, the cargo planes, they go back empty. So when you have backhaul, then you have more economy. But of course, you also have to deal with the regulation. Because if you hear the the ADB vice president the other day, last week, was saying that it costs to ship 100 metric tons of goods out of this country. In Ghana, it costs $4,000. In Nigeria, it costs $35,000. So we want to get over this whole thing, because we are just discouraging trade. And then if you look at the trade capacity, import and export is nearly $100 million, a billion, $100 billion. That's about the size. Now, but don't forget, that is mainly to do with incoming, and there may be oil going out. But when goods begin to go out in the size of the goods coming in, then we're going to be talking about something different.
Prof, how do we balance?
So the answer to your question is, it can be viable.
It can be viable, but
there's also time for bigger ones, yes.
But there's also the need to balance, you know, for instance, when you talk about rail, you're talking of a transportation that is supposed to be for the masses, you know, which is supposed to cater. When you put that side by side with the need for it to be viable, I mean, even now, the costs, the travel costs, let's say from Lagos to Ibadan, I think by rail it is about 1,000 or 2,000, which cannot, you know, add up to what we're talking about, the cost. So how do we balance that with the need to provide a mass transportation for the people?
Now, let me give you, first of all, the mass transportation is a key objective, because the road is becoming very dangerous, and there's a lot of attack on the roads. The roads are so bad. Transport that could take just 1 day to move goods from Katsina to Lagos or to Port Harcourt is taking 3 days because of all the bad roads. And the bad roads are such because you don't have the rail in operation. Now, what rail will do for you is, not only is the rail going to connect up all the local development centers across the country, it will actually have a lot of social impact. In fact, why Nigerians have gone to their shell is because of the discontinuities in the rail. Before, in the early 60s, rail was the way we travel around the whole country. But because there have been that disconnections, people are just withdrawing into their share. So in answer to your question, yes, it will continue to improve the economy. Remember, we also use it to distribute goods within the country, and that brings down prices. If you want to move 1 ton of grain from Katsina or Sokoto to Port Harcourt, it costs you between 75,000 to 100,000 naira a ton to move it. But if you are going to use rail to move it, it won't even cost you up to 10,000 or even maybe about 5,000, because 1 coach will carry about 30 metric tons, and then one head will drive about 30 coaches. So it's about 900 metric tons that just that one rail will carry from Kanu down to the south. So the cost will drop significantly. Impact of food on inflation will also drop, because transportation cost is about 20% of input costs, and then power is almost about 30% of input costs. So they don't forget that you can also transport fuel by rail. You can also transport gas by rail. All of those costs that drive a higher cost of power and transport will drop without a doubt. But then the real revenue will come from the movement of the goods, because if you look at our seaports, we get about 1 million containers, over 1 million containers come in a year. Now, those 1 million, imagine what is going on in Lagos. It takes you 2 weeks to get into the seaport and another week to get out of the seaport, and it costs you about 2 million naira. So why would you have all that cost? If the rail will simply move about 30 of them in one container, about 30 containers out, 30 trailers will come out in one shipment, all go into the inland container depot. People can now go there and clear their goods in Kaduna or in Ibadan or anywhere else in Jos. So they don't have to get into Lagos. Absolutely no reason to go into the Lagos seaport. Then the customs are there, in all the bonded warehouses, in all the ICDs. They go there and clear their goods. And some of these ICDs, inland container terminals, are port of original destination, which means you can actually ship your products from there and receive your products from there. You don't have to go to Lagos seaport.
So these things are workable. We just need to, work more at it. I believe that's what you're saying.
As the infrastructure, but there are others, because the bridge, Niger Bridge, and even Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, I was just looking at some figures. We could easily have 5,000 cars go through there, and if you are charging only 1,000 naira, in a year it's over 3 billion. Then think about the Lagos-Onitsha traffic going through the bridge, and that bridge is the gateway to the whole of Southeast and much of South-South. So you can imagine how much traffic, even if you are charging 1,000 to passenger traffic and 2,000 to heavy haulage, you can imagine how many billions of dollars, naira, you get in every year. So over a period of 20, 30 years, you can actually definitely recover the money. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But you have to get to that stage by building that infrastructure. And then think about the relief you get in all other modes of transport, all the other modes of transport like the highway and all of that. And, you get enormous relief on those. The maintenance costs will go down. The serviceability will go down. The other ones, the radial roads going out of those. You unbundle the problems that we are facing in industrial development. Just by making sure you have those infrastructure. And not to talk about the airport logistics.
Prof, you mentioned, that if cars are charged 1,000 and haulage 2,000, I'm sure you know that there'll be an outcry from the public if you were to tow a car 1,000 naira. It will not really go down well.
I'm not sure. No. I'm not sure I will agree with you. Look at the airline. We are charging 1,000 naira on passenger charges. 1,000 naira to add to your ticket to travel, in the airports. We raised it to 2,000 naira. Nobody complained. And then why are you saying to this? If I'm going to go to Lagos, passing Niger Bridge, and then you simply add, and there's a bus carrying 10 people, you simply add 500 naira to my ticket because I'm going to go through a fast bridge. That will be another 5,000 naira from the revenue that you get. I can't believe this, that you're asking me this question, because it is so cheap when you reduce it to the people who are using the transport. Or are you telling me if I'm paying 250,000 naira per day for a haulage to go from Enugu to Lagos to go and collect my container, and then they come and spend a day just waiting to cross Onitsha to Lagos? How much am I paying? It's costing me 250,000 naira. What's the difference in paying only 2,000 or 5,000 naira to pass through this new bridge? It's a massive savings. And then don't forget, when you have delay, you also have security challenge. So and then if you have perishable products, they go before they get to their destination. So the opportunity cost is not comparable.
All right, Prof, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on looking at the debt stock against the capital expenditure as at August, the ending of August. Thank you so much, Professor Kenife.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, so today is the 20th of October, and it's a day a lot of Nigerians, and in fact the world, will not forget in a hurry. Here in Nigeria, today, last year, there was the EndSARS protests, and then it turned very dramatic. It had been happening before now, but turned really dramatic on the 20th of October. So in remembrance of that, we have some celebrities joining in with other Nigerians, doing a drive-through procession at the Lekki toll gate to mark that 1-year anniversary of the EndSARS protest, which rocked several parts of the country a year ago. And the celebrities and other activities who turned up at the toll gate with their cars were seen waving Nigerian flags from inside their vehicles. Remember, Channel TV has been bringing you the story for some days now. We had the police showing the show of force yesterday, and so they had to do it from their vehicles, honking and singing solidarity song. We have our correspondent on ground there, Dari Dowu, to give us the latest of what's going on there. Hello, Dari. How are you doing? How is it looking there at Lekki Toll Plaza?
You can see and you can hear in the background the sound coming from here. He's telling a lot of stories. The celebrities or the people, or everyone, the campaigners, they're on ground. They are still demanding end to police brutality. It's a memorial, they said, and they said they will be driving through. But if you see what is happening right now on my left, there's a standstill. Of course, the number of protesters have grown. They have come in large numbers, still doing what they said they were going to do, raising the flag. And of course, some of them are coming out from the vehicles. The heavy security presence here, of course, can tell you a lot of story as well. I've got someone here who I caught up with last year, and he's been a part of this particular protest. He's going to be talking to us this morning. Pamela, please step into the shot. Pamela, let me start with this. This protest took a dramatic turn last year on October 20th. And you and I were in Alausa that day. I don't know if you can remember. Yeah. But the Lagos State government set up a panel. And they said they received 235 cases, 14 of them from the shooting on October 20th. Were you satisfied at all with the outcome, although the report is not out yet, of what played out at the panel?
If we are to be honest with ourselves, nothing has changed yet. Panel has been set, they've been going for panel sessions here and there. Nothing. They keep coming out with different news. First, something happened. The next thing, nobody shot guns. Next thing, nobody died. Next thing, no casualty. Come on. It's normal lies that the government come up with. It's regular, and we are used to it.
So now let's come back to what is happening here today. How is this going? The organizers of this protest said they were going to be here 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. To drive through and to blast their horns, raise the Nigerian flag. Is it going according to plan?
It's actually going according to plan. This is after 10 now, and we are actually done with the drive-through, and we're trying to control the traffic so people can go. But Nigerians are tired. People are beginning to come out of their cars. Can you see? They're beginning to come out of their cars because they are actually very tired. They are very tired.
Do you envisage what's it called, a chaotic scene here? Because it seems quite charged with the heavy security presence.
I think everything is going to be under control. People are respecting themselves. They are protesting peacefully, and they are being conscious of whatever happens here. The security guys are here to protect us. I believe they are here to protect us as well. So far so good. Everything is peaceful.
You heard it from the protester who basically said they are here to protest peacefully, and of course we are still here to give you all the updates, and we'll still be crossing to you any moment from now. Thank you very much, Ini.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dari. We'll certainly catch up with you not too long from now. We'll certainly bring you updates from Lekki Toll Plaza subsequently on Channels Television. For now, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll do Afex Commodities and other parts of the program. Just stay with us. And just before we go to Afex Commodities market, just a brief update from the UK. We have Juliana. Hello, Juliana. Good morning.
Good morning, Annie.
So inflation figures are out. Inflation for the consumer prices index, cost of goods and services. Fill us in on the inflation figures from the UK.
Yeah, we have had inflation figures for the month of September. They've dipped to 3.1%. This is from 3.2% in the previous month. Not enough, I believe, to stir the Bank of England away from rising interest rates. We already heard, and we discussed this early this week, from the Bank of England governor on Sunday, that they are concerned about inflation here in the UK. They had always said that they believe it would be transitory, but of course now we've had the significant surge in the wholesale gas price, which has increased by about 450% since the beginning of the year, and this is now creeping down to consumers. Separately, data from the Office for National Statistics also showed a jump in the cost of manufacturing goods in the UK from 6% to 6.7%, and inevitably this is going to trickle down. The MPC are due to meet on the 4th of November. Perhaps there won't be a rise then, but certainly economists have got it priced in that the rise to about 0.25% will happen by the end of this year.
Right, Juliana, we have to leave it there, but we'll continue this conversation at 1:30 during Business Incorporated.
Thank you, Annie.
So we'll just take a breather now. When we come back, we'll head straight to the Afex Commodities Exchange. In 1 week, the Afex Commodities Exchange added 366% more in value. What drove this? Michael Martins joins us now, the portfolio manager at Afex, for the details. Hello, Michael. Good to have you again.
Hi, Ini. Good morning. It is always a pleasure to be here.
Good to have you. So what drove this 366% on the exchange in 1 week?
So thank you very much. So a lot of that value was driven by what happened with the volume of maize that was traded on the exchange. In the week under consideration, I think the value in the week under consideration went from about 2 contracts to trading over 1 million contracts. But just looking over all the other data points that we have on the exchange, so like you said, right, the total value of transactions traded on the exchange went up by 366%, from around 48.59 million to close the trading week at more than 226 million. The total number of contracts traded on the exchange also went up by a factor of 17.89, from 53,743 contracts to close the trading week at more than 1 million contracts, right? However, the total number of deals fell by 18%, from 44 deals to close the trading week at 36 deals. The ACI, which is the Afex Commodities Index, and the AEI, which is the Afex Export Index, both remain unchanged at 427.34 points and 168.08 points, respectively. And then speaking, to the volume of contracts or to the value of contracts traded on the exchange, like I said earlier, a lot of that was accounted for, by maize, which traded up from 2 contracts last week to trading more than 1,201 contracts this week. And then we also saw significant changes in volume with cocoa, which went up from 485 contracts last week to trading more than 14,000 contracts this week. So the contract changes were also reflected in the price changes that we saw on the exchange during the week, with maize going up by 4.37%, gaining 879 naira in the contract values to close the trading week at 21,000 naira per contract. And then we also saw a massive gain in the price of cocoa, which went up by 17.13%, gaining 16,098 naira in the contract value to close the trading week at 110,098 naira per contract. So those are largely the price changes that we saw on the exchange in the week under consideration. All the other commodities remained, relatively unchanged. You know, and as we always say, if you want to get started trading, because we do come here every other week and inform people about the changes in the commodities market, you know, but there are ways by which you can participate in the market, which is basically to download the app that we have available on iOS and Android. And more broadly, if you want to know more about the commodities market, you can always go to our website, which is www.afexnigeria.com.
Talking about availability of sports, you know, we talk about if people are interested in trading. Are there sports contracts available on the COMEX?
Yes. So currently we have only the cocoa spot contracts available for trading on COMEX. And I must say that cocoa did particularly well, you know, for an export product last year, you know, went up by more than 12% over the course of the entire trading season, which is still significantly higher than the rates that we're currently getting, you know, with the treasury bills, which is sort of around 7.5%, or at least significantly less than 10% for the 365 days. You know, so for people that are looking to take part in the commodities market and are looking for some sort of avenue to make, you know, significant gains, cocoa ideally would be a veritable product. You know, that is currently available for trade. We will also have all the other grains available for trade, probably within the month of November and December, when we start having significant volume come into the market.
And with the treasury yields falling, are there implications for investment in the commodities market?
Yes, and I say that, quote unquote, and that's to say that traditionally, when you're looking at capital flows, traditionally you tend to see capital flow away from the fixed income market, which is treasury bill market, and then also into the equity market. So it sort of flows in and out like that, and that is when you're looking at the traditional investment space. But it is the case that alternatives are making, you know, the case that they can be veritable investment mediums, to which I would argue that some of the money that would be flowing out of you know, the fixed income market, that is the treasury bills, would inadvertently find their way, you know, to the commodities market in search of higher yields and higher returns on investment. So yes, I can say, you know, we should have a lot more capital available for investment in the commodities landscape.
All right, Michael, thank you so much. Let's switch over to Yusuf Ogumbi, the investment manager at Afex, now to continue this conversation. Well, it's the start of a new harvest season for a variety of farm produce, and an overview of how prices are determined in Nigeria's key agricultural commodities market is necessary. Understanding the basics of commodities market price development is essential for assessing the consequences of market realities and government policies, as well as initiatives existing or proposed. Well, Afex is in this discussion and will also release a crop production outlook report to advance the conversation. That's what we're having to do with Yusuf Ogumbi, the investment manager. Good to speak with you, Mr. Ogumbi. Good morning.
Good morning, Ini. Good morning. Nice to be here again.
Good to have you. So COVID-19 is still a major concern around the world, and the shocks from various lockdowns are still obvious. What are the major takeaways from the planting season as we enter a new harvest season?
Thank you very much, Ini. So COVID-19 is still very much of a challenge globally, not just in Nigeria. So we've seen cases of governments issuing orders for lockdowns, and some other governments saying that they will be opening up. I think Australia some days ago said they will be opening up fully. So what we now see in this case is a situation where you see that push and pull affecting logistics, supply chains, and movement of commodities across the world. So that's been a challenge. But domestically, the way we've seen it play out is flowing into the fertilizer market. At some time in the year, we saw that we couldn't bring in fertilizer. There were some challenges bringing in fertilizer into the country. At some other time, we noticed that easing out, and now we have significant fertilizer supplies in the country. So what that can do is to affect the production cost, which we think might inch up a bit for farmers that are produced in the country. And what we then see is that will then transfer into the final prices of commodities that will be sold in the markets, in various markets across the country. So that's how we think it will play out, affecting production costs, and then transferring that into the final prices of commodities.
And food inflation, I mean, inflation figures were out on Friday, and it tapered. But I mean, it's reached the highest level in 15 years earlier this year. While it's evident that the overall price level of agricultural item is influenced by a range of market dynamics, What are your price expectations for the new season?
So like you said, food inflation declined a bit as at the last time it was released. But then what we see is that it's like analysts will say it's base effects playing out majorly. In the markets across the country, like you and I know, we still have some bit of challenges with the prices of food commodities in the country. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, however, we see that prices of commodities going into the next season will reflect the performance of the exchange rate, reflect the performance of production costs, like I mentioned earlier, and also the performance of inflation, the core inflation, so to say. So you have transportation, logistics, affecting these prices. And what we think is that we are beginning to see some sense that prices might move fast as we begin the season. So we might expect a similar behavior to what we saw last year, around the same time last year. And like Michael said, there is some participation. So we see increased participation in this space as well. International buyers are recognizing Nigeria more and more, especially for cocoa, sesame, and ginger. And we think this will also reflect in the prices of commodities, demand and supply balance. So all in all, we think it will still have a mix of what we saw last year, maybe a little bit of price increase in some commodities, but then it will be closely related, similar to what we had last year.
So the degree of influence of government programs varies greatly from commodity to commodity, but in general, government programs increase the incentives to produce the crop receiving support. What program or policies can assist in achieving a favorable price formation across the value chain?
So we've seen the government interventions we see across the value chain as always targeted different segments of the value chain. So you have the interventions in production, which relates to fertilizer. And then what we then see moving forward is that the volatility in prices of commodities in the country is quite high, and we think there is some increasing calls for the need for us to bring about our strategic grain reserves. So you see that the strategic grain reserves in the country are quite diminished, and that means that we consume all we produce in 1 year. We don't have spillovers, we don't have leftovers at the end of every year. And that's where I think some government interventions will be critical now, so that we are able to balance the volatility and also ensure that food security is ensured for the country. So that's one another angle. So in addition to the participation of the government in the production side, we also think establishment of or improving on the strategic grain reserves will be critical in also managing some of these price fluctuations and scarcity that we typically see at some time in the year. So strategic grain reserve is one other intervention that might be necessary.
All right. Well, how do you think a crop production outlook report can help Nigeria's food system?
So a lot of importance is attached to this crop production outlook. So you look at over the last 10 years, if not more than that, we barely have crop outlooks telling us the direction where we think production has been, production cost, and the prices as a result of all of this. So we think, and that's one thing we've been doing over the last 2-3 years now at Afex, consistently producing, reporting on what the production has been and how we think it will affect the markets. This information is critical for policymakers in designing the strategic grain reserves. It's important for businesses in designing their procurement and supply chain practices. It's important for everybody, ordinary men like you and I, like me and you. It's important for us to take decisions as to how we buy our commodities, when we buy these commodities. At the end of the day, this is very important for determining prices of final products. So imagine if a business is able to structure its supply chain more appropriately, and they are able to take decisions that would help them reduce costs, which we think is a benefit. So that will also mean that they're able to manage their costs. They're able then to also manage the price of their final products that are sold to consumers across the country. So we think the reports have a very diverse use cases, and then policymakers, businesses, investors inclusive, and everybody needs to always follow this form of information to understand what's going on in these markets.
Yeah, well, information is power. Thank you so much, Yusuf Ogumbi, and we do hope we would see that report in no distance time from now. Thank you so much, Investment Manager with Afex, Yusuf Ogumbi. So we'll take a break now. When we come back, I will do an opening call to the markets. To stay with us is Business Morning on Channels Television. Welcome back. Well, Will Ebong is standing by to give us details of the markets were not open yesterday, but she has some information for us. Hello, Will.
Hello, Ini. Good morning. Yes, the market wasn't open yesterday because of the public holiday, but we're open today. We're back in business, and I'm sure the trading floor is buzzing as we're speaking. But we're just going to quickly review what happened on Monday because we're able to do that. Monday started very, very bearish. Bearish sentiment permeated the market as profit-taking activities and bellwether stocks, MTN, Nigerian, Nestle, dragged the all-share index lower. The all-share index declined by 0.71% to close at 41,144.67 points. And accordingly, we see that the month-to-date and the year-to-date gains have settled at 2.3% and 2.2%. Now we're seeing almost neck-to-neck movement here with the month-to-date and the year-to-date gains, and we're hoping that the year-to-date gains will definitely overtake what we're seeing at the moment. But to give us more insight on what's going on, we have Phil Anegbe, research analyst at Cardinal Stone Securities. Good morning, Phil. Hi, Phil. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Good morning, Will. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, Phil. So quick, just tell us what happened on Monday. What triggered the pullback, especially with the stocks of MTN and Nestle so unexpectedly?
Yeah, actually, the pullback represented some profit taking in some of the names you mentioned. For MTN, we saw domestic institutional sellers in the stock on Monday. And we also saw a pullback in FBNH. Of course, FBNH has been the toast of the market, has rallied strongly in the preceding 5 days before that session. So there was profit taking in FBNH. We also observed the notable absence of a huge buyer of the stock on that day, right? So that drove some speculations as to whether or not the huge buyer is done with his purchases, right? So those were some of the activities that played out that day, but by and large, largely reflected some profit taking. But then there were also key developments, new key on the block, talking about the NGX group. That listed recently, it's been rallying since it listed, off the back of interest from its member firms and key stakeholders. So by and large, the market was also weak, was not able to weather the storm of profit sellers on the session on Monday.
Okay, talking about the developments in the markets, we're looking at MTN, Nestle. Was there any news in the market about them that drove the profit taking? Was there any earnings? Was it driven on the back of earnings, or just, like I said, it was unexpected?
Yeah, for MTN and the other stocks, sell pressures may be related to expectations of Q3 earnings. For MTN, for one, it's expected that these effects may lead to some moderation in growth in Q3, and Q3 numbers are just set to be released in the coming week, maybe in the coming week or two. You begin to see Q3 numbers. The expectation is that we see some moderation in their growth. We've seen some very decent growth in the preceding quarter, but our expectation is for that growth to taper off on the back of base effects. So that may be one of the factors the market is pricing in. Right, but then you cannot also rule out profit taking in itself because some of the stocks have trended higher. There's been some sort of bullish sentiment across a few of these stocks for some weeks, and it's very natural that at some point it may lead to take some profit. But then positioning ahead of Q3 results is also a likely fact.
Ahead of Q2 result, do you think investors are also positioning ahead of the bond auction today? Maybe that's why we saw some profit taking as well. Maybe they're trying to divest, move over.
Well, in terms of the reactions to corporate at the auctions, they've not been really noticeable in the equities market, right? We've seen in the last few NCD auctions, corporate coming down by some basis points, some cases like 30 basis points, other cases goes up. But those changes have not been really felt. In terms of the path to the equities market, it's not been one for one, right? Instead, the equities market has been largely driven by speculations, expectations around corporate actions, around expected earnings releases. The key sectors have been performing well, so people pricing in all those expectations. We've seen sectors like the agri space, names like Fresco, Okomo, particularly Okomo most recently, went higher on the back of expectations of very robust Q3 numbers. So positioning ahead of result releases and speculations around corporate actions have been driving markets, right? WAPCO, discussions on whether or not they are going to pay their first interim dividend, right? And same for Fresco and maybe Okomo. So those kind of speculations have been driving activities as opposed to reactions to corporate adoption. For corporate adoption, I think the reactions have not been one for one. We've not seen a lot from that dimension. It's been purely company-specific factors and expectations around corporate actions driving market performance.
Thank you so much, Phil, for that insight. So we look forward to the bull run continuing in the market. I'm being bullish on the market, and I hope that it continues today. We'll just watch and see. So, Ini, that's what we have for the markets today. So it's back to you.
Thank you so much. I believe I'm optimistic with you too on the equities and hope that the bull continues to run in the market. Well, let's just switch over to the crypto market now. In just about 24 hours, about $4 trillion has been added to the global crypto market cap, indicating a 1.77% increase. This morning, it was at 2.53 trillion naira. However, the volume shed over 11% to $88.55 billion, and that makes it 11.36% decrease. The total volume in DeFi is currently $11.16 billion. That's 12.61% of the total crypto market 24-hour volume. The volume of all stablecoins is now $68.20 billion. That's 77.02% of the total crypto market 24-hour volume. Bitcoin is still rallying. Talking about the bull, its dominance slightly higher today, 47.68%, an increase of 0.60% over the day, and the price almost $2,000 more than it was this time yesterday. So $63,990. That was about 8:40 a.m. The volume, $37.50 against almost $40 billion yesterday. Moving on to Ethereum now, 24-hour volume for Ethereum down $17.68 billion yesterday, 15.48 today, although the price was up 1.20% at about 8:40. It was $3,848.56. Now let's move to the green and the red table. Going to the green first. A lot of XRP has changed this morning, from shedding more than 1% yesterday to adding almost 1% this morning. Polkadot still within $41, but its price is almost 1% up compared to what it was this time yesterday. Terra recorded an almost 6% gain in 24 hours, while Wrapped, Bitcoin, and Avalanche added almost 3% and 2.40% each. Now going to the flip side, Binance Coin has switched tables. Today it's in the red, shed 1.27% to settle at $485.98. Cardano slightly changed from this time yesterday. Tether, Solana still in the red, losing almost 1%. Doge has recorded a loss this morning, almost 2% of its price in 24 hours. USD also lost marginally. Well, we have Gilbert joining us now, Gilbert Jupata, to tell us, explain to us what's going on in the market. But first, there's something really interesting going on. That's the Facebook Novi wallet and how this is going to affect the market. Gilbert, good morning. Tell us about this Facebook Novi wallet.
All right, good morning, Mine. Okay, one notable thing about Facebook is how they have kept moving forward despite criticism from policymakers and also media outlets. You know, the initial plan was, which started about 2 years ago, was to launch Libra as a permission blockchain payment system and then use Dime as its currency. But however, that couldn't see the light, and they have finally arrived at launching a digital wallet called Novi, which is in partnership with, they are partnering with Bezos and Coinbase. So what is happening is Novi will be the digital wallet which will be integrated to Facebook and Messenger, and this is quite innovative. While they will use, while Coinbase will be the custody, Coinbase is going to serve as the custody for Bezos. But this is quite disruptive because it's going to change the ecosystem from the stable coin. The stable coin now, there will be high competition because I think Bezos is sitting at number 7 right now in regards to top stable coin. Imagine the billions of users on Facebook that is going to be onboarded these new wallets. And in general, the fact that each user now on Facebook will have access to these wallets, which means you could send money anywhere in the world seamlessly with trust and no fee. The fact that there is no fee at all to it is quite, it's something that is welcoming. And a pilotage have already begun, which began yesterday. Pilotage have begun by sending and receiving money on this particular crypto wallet, which will be integrated into Facebook. I think a larger competition is going to come in where we will see other social media also start integrating things like this, just like we have with Twitter, integrating the Bitcoin Lightning to Twitter users. So with that, Twitter users can also send and receive money among themselves. We are going to see other social media outlets start integrating this disruptive technology into their system.
Very disruptive indeed, Gilbert. A lot of conversations, a lot of questions to ask, you know, concerning this, especially when you say that users will be able to send and receive money without fees. Central banks are going to frown at that and they're going to look for what to do. But anyway, that will be a conversation for another day. Thank you so much, Gilbert, and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, you're welcome.
Yeah, so that's it on the program. Thank you so much for being a part of it. We'll do it again tomorrow, God willing. I'm Ini John Mekwa.